Hello sensuals. You want to talk something nasty today? Let's do it. 4 ways you can mess up your intimate relationship. Please consider that this is a subjective perspective, and if you feel that once you go through each 4, and I'll put timestamps below the video, if you feel that you're not in that situation or it doesn't apply to you, then don't worry about it. You can just share it with somebody else, or you can forget entirely about it. Number 1, bringing up ex-partners just to mention them or even to compare. If this kind of dynamic happens in a relationship, it can have at least 3 sources from my perspective. Number 1, the person that keeps bringing up their exes may not be over them and may not even be aware that they're not over them, or this person is somehow trying to test their current partner to see how they react, to see if based on their reactions they are desirable or not. This is actually a tricky one because it may have a little arrogance or an ego in it, or pride, as in I've had many partners and some of them were amazing. And the third cause is actually where somebody's not so aware of this and they've seen other people do this in relationships and they just took this habit and they think, oh, it's natural to bring up our old partners and compare them to the current one. If you are on the giving side of this, then please be aware that you're bringing a rat in your relationship and you're sabotaging any chance of a healthy relationship, actually, because the other person cannot feel that they can trust you. Even if you compare them as in a beautiful way, so the current partner is better than the old ones, this is still an unhealthy practice and it's still making your partner not comfortable because you're bringing up people who are no longer in the present. You're not focusing on the present. If you're doing this and you think this is no big deal, then what can I say? I wish you the best of luck with that approach. I personally don't think it's constructive. I don't think it's healthy. And I think it's damaging your chances of cultivating a beautiful relationship with the person that you're with. If you are on the receiving side of this, this is actually something that, from my perspective, you need to call it as soon as you spot it. Now, it's tough because this is done by the partner who is usually much more strong or much more experienced, quote unquote, or much more proud in a way. And usually the partner that is more sensitive, they don't do this. This is how this dynamic happens. So if you're on the receiving side, then you're the softer or the more sensitive partner, and it's definitely tricky and hard to receive it and also to call it out. But if you are constantly hearing of old partners, you are constantly compared to them, then yes, the attitude is to call it out, and there are 2 ways of doing it. If you can muster up your inner strength and your courage, then the strongest way to do it is something in this area. Love, this is so unattractive. I am not interested in a relationship where old partners are being brought up, whether yours or mine. This is not the dynamic that I want. I want us to focus on each other, on our present moment. Can you please meet me at this level? This puts him or her on a very delicate position, but it also raises a strong signal of alarm. Hey, this is something that stinks here and we need to fix this. If you can't muster up this courage and this kind of attitude, then another way of still addressing this is something like this. Hearing about your old partners, even if I am being put on a beautiful light here, is still making me uncomfortable, and I need you to stop this. Please focus on us and on the present. I will definitely appreciate you and love you even more for this. This will help me trust us better. If you cannot approach this at all, and yes, this can happen, then chances are this will eat you inside up to a point where you will just burst out. So if you're watching this, I hope you can not get to that point. Number 2 is doubting your compatibility. Now, if you begin a relationship with somebody, that obviously means that this person had enough qualities for you or for the both of you to actually begin this relationship. So there was sufficient compatibility for you to get to the stage where you're having a relationship. And obviously, nobody's ideal, nobody's perfect. That doesn't exist on planet Earth. If either one of the partners is doubting the compatibility based on the flaws that they see on others, or based on the way the other person is feeling, thinking, acting, doing, going about things, simply because they are different, then you're actually second-guessing your decision, or you're sabotaging your decision, and you're not giving your relationship a chance. Here's what I mean by this. Relationships are meant and built for us to grow, to evolve. All kinds of relationships, not just your intimate one. Growth and evolution inherently mean that we are stepping outside of what is familiar to us. We're doing things, we're learning to do things in a new way, because obviously we are having a relationship with somebody new. And even if it's somebody old, we still get across obstacles or challenges, and we need to learn new ways to approach these, basically become ourselves a new version. So if you're in this process or in this situation where you come across flaws, things that don't work so well, the approach that I would encourage you to go for is actually not, I think we're not compatible, but how do we make this work? Totally different perspective. The first one shows that you're actually wanting to bail out somehow. The second attitude is actually showing that you are a team player and you're there for the growth of things. You're actually there to make things happen, to make things work, because you decided previously that you want a relationship with this person. If you're on the giving side of this, then here's a better way to approach the flaws or the things that annoy you in your partner. And I'll just give an example. Love, you know how you giggle sometimes when we make love? I find that so annoying and distracting, and I cannot be there for you. Can you please focus more on your body or on your sensations or on the pleasures that you're having? It would make it so much easier for me. If you're on the receiving side of this, then again, please remember that relationships are meant to help you grow. They're meant to change you, and this process is not going to be pleasant, obviously, for neither one of you. But if you're constantly hearing doubts from your partner, here's how you can approach this, or how you can react in a better or more gentle and loving way. I am sorry to hear this. How can I make this better? How can I be better at X, Y, and Z? Instead of defending yourself or feeling hurt, which is, if you're feeling hurt, that's only human, so we all suffer when the person that we're with doubts us. But if you can get over that and just show that you are still there for them and for the relationship, and also stick up for yourself. So you're putting yourself in an active role and in a team player role. So you're being there for the long run. Okay, we have this challenge. How can we make it work? Either one of the two, again, remember that somebody who's with you is going to want to improve and to get better in order to build this relationship with you. So this is not breaking their boundaries, this is not self-manipulating, and this is not people-pleasing. This is how relationships are actually built. Now, there's a huge difference here. And in terms of coaching, we can definitely have this trap. We are told not to break our boundaries, but then again, we are told that in order to grow, we have to get outside of our comfort zone. This is where I think coaching can definitely mess people up, because these two approaches contradict themselves. Now, we're obviously not talking about having relationships with people who are serial killers or rapists or, I don't know, compulsive obsessive or obsessive compulsive or whatever other behavior. We're talking just normal, balanced people who are trying to make a relationship work. And the efforts of making that work are actually what it takes to have a relationship. Number 3, keeping activities or habits that can hurt or put pressure on the relationship. Now, when I say this, most people may think of vices, bad diets, toxic people around them, crazy working hours, and any other kind of activities that will just drain the life out of them. This is the case also, but in some occasions, things can be much more subtle. So it can be just certain social dynamics that you have that are hindering you from being a better partner. Sometimes it can be certain activities that aren't necessarily so bad, but they just hinder your relationship. They somehow threaten the intimacy or the loving connection that you have with that person. You're not necessarily sabotaging your relationships just with the worst kinds of activities, jobs, foods, pleasures, hobbies, or people around you. No, sometimes it can just be a certain dynamic that hinders intimacy, true connection, opening up from a much more beautiful place to one another. And if you spot yourself saying something like this, once I meet the one, X, Y, and Z thing or activity or hobby or whatever are out for me, it's all done, it'll be behind me, then this is your signal that even if it's not so bad what you're now doing, this is still your signal that you're hindering your ideal one to come in, or the current one to turn into that ideal one. If you are on the giving side of this, so if you find yourself saying, you know, I work in modeling and I interact with a lot of people, but once I meet the one, this will all be behind me, then chances are that while still working in modeling, you cannot meet your ideal lover, or the current lover that you're having is somehow feeling the pressure, although they can't necessarily put their finger on it, and they can't present themselves from the more beautiful and relaxed and trusting place where you want them to be. So if you're on the giving side of this habit, I would encourage you to not wait for the one. I would actually encourage you to think, is there something that I can do now to stop this and do something else? To stop eating this or smoking or drinking this or interacting with this group of people or doing this kind of job or working these late hours so that I can make room for doing other activities that will get me closer to my ideal one or my one. If you're on the receiving side of this, so if you're in a relationship with somebody who thinks you're the one for them but just didn't manage to quit doing whatever it was that they were doing, and you feel that that activity or preference or hobby or people, social interaction is damaging your relationship, then first of all, I know how tough it is. And I know how sometimes the seemingly normal things that this other person does for them can hurt you. And yeah, this is a definitely delicate place to be in. And you need to be aware of something. As I said at the beginning, either he or she thinks you're the one, but just didn't manage to get rid of everything that he wanted to, or she wanted to, or this person doesn't feel you're the one, and they keep doing, eating, seeing people, working in the way they have been doing so far, because they don't feel you are the one for them. There are, I think, just a limited number of things that you can do here to receive in an honoring way to yourself as well. First of all, you can point it out and you can say that the X, Y, and Z is making you feel uncomfortable. It doesn't help you to open up more or trust them more or go deeper with them. You can choose to not say anything and just lead by your own example. So if you have things in your life that you know are hurting this other person, you can definitely do internal work and change these things, and in basically showing them in this effort that you're there for the long run and you're investing. And this is how, you know, any loving partner does. And the third way, which is the toughest thing to do, is probably to leave. Now, I'm not saying that you ought to do this immediately. I'm not saying you should do this at all. This is just an option and it's definitely your choice. But what I am saying is this: some people need to lose the one or lose something in order to get it in their heads that that thing, activity, hobby, job, social circle, etc. is in fact keeping them from their own happiness. They may process this immediately, they may process this in their own term. I have said this in other videos, some people need to mess up more relationships until something changes in their minds or inside of them. But this is, if you choose to leave, it's obviously an enormous pressure on you because the pain of separation is intolerable. So this is definitely for you to think about and not to rush into. Just know that this kind of dynamic, having your partner or you keeping things that are hindering your relationship, is definitely painful to witness, it's painful to receive, and it can be painful to actually give to the other person as well. Number 4, it's closing up from your own emotions or from the emotions that your partner has. Now, as I said before, in relationships, we are triggered, and this is how we grow, through obstacles, challenges, through things that come up to the surface, and we are called on to deal with them, to handle them. And this is the beautiful and also challenging gift that relationships give us. The ideal here is actually to, first of all, realize that we have all spectrum of emotions. If you think that relationships are just about the beauty of it, then that's not realistic. We have anger, we have fear, we have anxiety, we have guilt, we have shame, we also have joy, we have love, we have tenderness, we have closeness, we have surprise, we have euphoria, we have exuberance, satisfaction, and so on. All of these emotions are part of life, not just our intimate relationships, by the way. And in intimate relationships is actually the place where we want one another to express them, manifest them, show ourselves from these places, and be seen, be loved, be accepted, or be just helped and supported to break through them, basically. If you are on the giving side of this, basically you're the one who's coming up with all these emotions and challenged with every situation, and you find yourself confused how you're feeling or why you're feeling so overwhelmed by it. Here's one thing that you can do to help yourself and your partner and the relationship to actually advance. You can, if you find the strength and the presence in that situation to say, you can call out the fact that it's just something that happens inside of you in that moment, and it's not related to your partner, it's your thing that comes up, and you just need to manifest it or to express it or to speak it, to cry it, to scream it, whatever, and then have it passing by or processing or transforming or purifying. So you just need support in that. And then obviously go through whatever you're going through. Now, I'm assuming here that this is about the negative emotions because nobody has a problem when we're expressing joy or laughter or exuberance or surprise. I mean, everybody's okay with that. It's usually the nasty things that we don't like. And this is the kind of things that I'm talking about with number 4 now. You're closing up from this kind of emotions. Well, they're not so beautiful to handle and not so beautiful to witness. And yet, they ought to be witnessed. And yes, if you're on the giving side of this, have the trust in yourself that this happens in all relationships. 99.99999% of relationships are built between two human beings who go through this kind of emotions. And the purpose here is actually to show yourself in the most vulnerable place and have the confidence that this person will be there for you and will understand you because they're a human being also, and their turn will come up sooner or later. Make no mistake, everybody goes through this kind of shit. And we need help from our partner, obviously, So if you can just have this confidence and then speak from this confidence with your partner, you're helping everybody in the discussion. If you are on the receiving side of this, so basically if you're the partner who has to see or witness the other one crying, screaming, getting angry, making a scene or whatever, every other day or every 2 days or every 4 days, so on, then just remember that this is human, first of all, and try to understand that this does not happen for the long run, especially if you chose this partner. You obviously chose them because you knew somewhere deep inside that they can meet you at your own level of development, of evolution, and so on. You're compatible with this person, otherwise you would not be in a relationship with this person. So just offer them what you would want them to offer you should you break down and cry and be scared and feel that you're gonna die or whatever else may happen to you as well, because those things can obviously happen to you. So give them the space that you would want them to give you, and trust or reassure them that you're there, that it's okay and that it's human to go through this. And if you can, don't bail out on them. We can bail out on them from many perspectives, and that's probably the worst thing that can happen. If you can. If you can't, you're obviously gonna bail out on them, and you ought to be aware that this can be very, very painful to somebody who hasn't had the chance to grow through that emotion, to basically to reach the purpose of the relationship, to evolve. So this is it for me. These are the 4 ways, subtle ways I might add, in which we can mess up our relationships. I hope that here you get to look at them. And if you find yourself in the giving or the receiving of any of these 4 things, I hope this information helps you. And I hope you also take the time to think how you would go about it. This does not necessarily have to be the only way you can fix these things. So until next week, I hope that you have conscious, beautiful, loving, tender, and orgasmic relationships, even if they make you crazy at times. This is what relationships are, but they're still a gift. So enjoy them.